This is the third episode in a series of videos where I'll be making a Portal map series currently titled Frostbite. In the last episode, I built a test chamber from scratch, and in this episode I'll be building a new map taking place outside of the test chambers, and also discussing a fairly major rework. First off, I'll discuss the rework, then we can go into the creation of the map. Originally, I had 6 maps planned. The first 3 I've already shown off, and the 4th is going to be made in this episode. The 5th would have been another test chamber, and the 6th would have been the finale. But the map I'm making in this episode mostly just originally served as a quick change in the environment. The story was that you were redirected there by the scientists just because it's faster than going through another test chamber whilst reaching the same destination. Which, yes, that makes sense, but it ultimately doesn't really serve much purpose in the story. Now, another unrelated problem is that when you first get the portal gun, you get the dual portal gun, not the single, and none of the playtesters realised this, they all thought it was the single gun. But fair enough, I am breaking the trend of giving you the single portal gun first, then the dual portal gun later, so I got a map that needs a purpose, and I also need to find a good spot to give the player a dual portal gun. So I did a lot of thinking, and here's the new version of the map. You've been placed here because nearby to this location there's a tram system, similar to the one at the start of Half-Life, and this tram system can take you directly to the scientist's part of the facility. So he places you in that area and tells you that you need to get through it to reach the tram system. So what is this area? It's an executive briefing centre. What's that? It's a sort of exhibit of different Aperture technologies, where they're presented for investors, stakeholders, and executives. The main theme of this exhibit is lasers, but there's also a dual port gun on display for you to steal. Certain parts of the exhibit have collapsed, some areas don't have power, so you have to use this test equipment on display to reactivate power in certain sections to progress. I'm not going to go into depth into what happens next, but there are now more maps that will take place in this area outside of the testing track. You may also notice the problem with the last 2 tests being for dual portal guns, so there's going to have to be some moving of maps around and making new maps in their place. So we're looking at a lot more maps than we were previously. I'm basically saying this is never getting released. But with all that out of the way, let's go on to making the map. Even though it takes place outside the tests, I'm still going to design the puzzle in PTI. I still need to have a test, even if it's not the main focus of the map. In Portal Plus Chapter 5 Part 4, it was a fairly short map with no puzzle at all, mostly just focused on cool events like a test chamber building around you. It's probably my favourite Chapter 5 map, but I've seen people play it and just call it filler. So yeah, I need a puzzle here. Anyway, I designed this thinking of each of the different areas as small displays in an exhibit that will interact with each other by sending the lasers all the way to the other side of the room. It took a while to find a design I liked, but eventually I created this. You have a few laser cubes that you use to raise the platform so you can redirect a laser onto this catcher, which opens this raised area where you can get another cube to activate this relay catcher, which moves the panel out of the way so you can activate a catcher here, which will serve as the final point that you need to activate. It looks really weird in PTI, but trust me, it'll look cleaner when I'm done. Next, I converted the PTI version to Hammer. I'm making it like this as I will still need the entities, inputs and outputs from this, even though visually it's not remotely close to what I'm planning. Once I had it all set up and working, I began taking out different segments of this puzzle, transforming them into their exhibit display form. I won't talk too much about the aesthetic, it's essentially just pieces of test chamber walls with some supports on top of red carpet, surrounded by the rope barriers from the underground Aperture lobby in Portal 2. I switched to a larger platform elevator for the raised area instead, mainly to ensure that you couldn't use a cube to jump up there, and it's also just a better use of the space. For the laser emitter, I did something different. I had the actual laser on the tile above where it was previously, but here that part of the wall has collapsed and the laser hits the ground where you need to place the cube. I spent quite a while working on the debris surrounding the laser emitter to make it look supported at that angle. For the portal gun display, I made this circular platform that's going in the centre of the room. I ended up decreasing the light map scale because the rope barriers surrounding the portal gun gave it these cool shadows. I eventually removed the rope barriers as it makes grabbing the portal gun mildly annoying, but it still looked cool before. I reworked the arm blocking the final laser catch to be this small tower of arm panels leaning at an angle. And finally, here's the wall I designed for the final laser catch to go on. Once all these modules were done, I made a basic version of the room I wanted. This room would be half rectangular and half semicircle. The semicircle part's walls will be giant windows with a cavern visible on the other side. I don't go into the cavern in this episode, but I plan for it to feature things like a frozen lake and an opening to the sky. Once I was done making this area whilst constantly measuring it with the modules I already had, I inserted them all in. Some minor tweaking happened from here with each of the modules, but for the most part I was focusing on visuals. The aesthetic I used here is essentially the same as the first room in the finale of Portal Plus, although at a larger scale, and that aesthetic is a blend of the old Aperture lobby with my own office aesthetic. Admittedly, I lean more towards the old Aperture lobby aesthetic featuring the ball lights and the rope barriers. The area outside the windows in this video will be a white void, which is a very abstract yet beautiful aesthetic choice, very highbrow stuff. I'm joking, of course, it's just a placeholder. You'll see me going faster through a bunch of iterations of this map. I don't want to bore you with too many details about pipe placement or overlay choice. Sorry for taking so long with this episode, I've been quite busy so I haven't had too much time for Hammer, and I have just been slow as I want to be more careful with this map. I feel like too often my behind the scenes maps have some very inconsistent quality, so I want to make sure that this one is thought through correctly. Unfortunately, not all of the map I discussed will be made in this episode, only this main exhibit here. But now that I have the central puzzle done, I can focus on more exploration styled gameplay, which is a lot less hassle to design. Although there is already a lot in this map, even though it's only one room so far. And when I still have a lot more planned for this map, I haven't even built the starting area yet. And due to sources and limitations, there's a chance that this map might have to be split into two at some point. So that's just another map to the ever-growing list. Anyway, here's the latest version of this map. It's still not done. I've got a bunch more I want to do with this area near the window, having some windows broken and allowing for snow to fall into this area. I need to decorate the rooms on the sides, and I'll probably find many more tweaks I need to make. But this is where I'll leave it for now. In the next episode, I'll hopefully be building the other areas, the entry, the cavern, and what happens next. I'll also be discussing the other purpose of this map, introducing a new character. See ya.